She was blind in one eye, deaf in one ear, no service record, no rank, no known history. They laughed when she stepped off the bus, back straight, one hand clutching a worn-out canvas bag. A 43-year-old woman with streaks of gray in her hair, walking into one of the most brutal training facilities in the country. "Wrong building, Grandma," one of the young officers smirked. 9 minutes later, 5 men lay scattered on the mat, writhing, groaning, broken. The woman stood in the center, calm, unmoved. She hadn't broken a sweat. She hadn't even blinked. Her name was Evelyn Rowe. And if you think she came here to learn how to fight, you've already misunderstood. She came here to remind them what it really means to fight to survive. Evelyn didn't speak when she arrived. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She just walked. Her left foot dragged slightly. Not enough to call a limp, but just enough for those who were watching to notice. The sun carved hard shadows across the dust-colored asphalt of Fort Mason, a brutal place designed to forge weapons out of men. And yet, here she was, an aging woman with no file, no medals, no past. A name on paper, and even that barely. She passed the lineup of recruits, most of them in their 20s. Loud, lean, cocky. One of them whispered, "She looks like someone's mom got lost on base." Evelyn didn't flinch. Her left eye, clouded unmoving, stared straight ahead. Her right ear caught nothing of the laughter. She kept walking toward the main building. It was as if she didn't see them. Or maybe she'd seen far worse. At Fort Mason, silence was often a weapon. But Evelyn's silence wasn't tactical. It was misunderstood. To the young recruits, she was a joke. "Is this special training or senior rehab?" one of them muttered in the mess hall. Another leaned in closer. "Smug. They say she's deaf in one ear and half blind. How did she even get in?" Even the instructors were skeptical. Sergeant Briggs, thick-necked and loud, scanned her up and down the first day of drills. "You have 10 seconds to convince me you belong here, ma'am," he barked, mocking the last word. Evelyn didn't answer. She simply adjusted the strap on her boot and stood at parade rest, unmoving, unfazed. Briggs scowled. Didn't think so. What none of them realized was that Evelyn had never needed to convince anyone. Especially not anymore. Days passed. Evelyn remained quiet. She ate alone, drilled alone, slept in the farthest bunk under the broken ceiling fan no one else wanted. No complaints, no questions. Just stillness. At first, they took it for fear, but then came the run. 5 miles full gear, blistering heat. The younger recruits blasted ahead, showing off laughing racing. Evelyn stayed at the back, a steady rhythm. Measured. Unshaken. Mile 3. The sprinters started to fade. Mile 4. She passed them. No heavy breathing, no pride in her face. Just forward. Always forward. Calloway, the quiet private from Iowa, noticed it first. "She doesn't run to win," he whispered. "She runs like she's done it, in real fire, and maybe, just maybe she had." That night, Calloway stayed a few minutes longer in the gym. The others were gone showering, joking, forgetting the pain of the day. Evelyn remained. She stood barefoot on the mat, under dim emergency lights, practicing movements no one had taught in this program. Her hands moved like clockwork. Not flashy, not fast, but precise. Strike, redirect, break, reset, over and over again. At one point she closed her good eye and kept going perfectly. Calloway watched from the shadows. He wasn't sure what he was seeing, but he knew what it wasn't. This wasn't someone learning how to fight. This was someone remembering. Evelyn finished, turned off the lights, and walked past him without a word. But in that brief moment he caught a glimpse of her wrist, a faded mark, a ghost of ink. He didn't recognize it. Not yet. By week 2, Evelyn wasn't invisible anymore. She was a target. In the mess hall, Lieutenant Harper held up a steak knife like a prop. "Anyone got a spare pair of reading glasses? Grandma's gonna need help cutting this." Laughter. Applause. Evelyn didn't look up. She sliced her food bite by bite with a steady hand. Sergeant Briggs wasn't laughing. He didn't need to. To him, humiliation was a tool. He watched her during drills like a lion sizing up a gazelle. Left foot dragging again, he barked one morning. "Gotta oil those old joints." Evelyn didn't respond. "You ignoring me, Roe?" She finally turned slowly. "No, Sergeant," she said. "I'm just not interested in noise." The air turned cold. Calloway didn't laugh. No one did. The next morning, Briggs made her run the obstacle course twice. Full gear, no brakes, no shade. It was over 100 degrees. The air was thick. The others completed it once and collapsed by the benches. Evelyn didn't. She moved through the course like she was counting steps. Not fast, not loud, just deliberate. Crawl, climb, land, breathe. Again. By her second lap, even Briggs looked uncomfortable. "You trying to prove something, Roe?" he asked. She didn't answer, but Calloway saw it. In the way she gripped the rope, how her injured eye scanned the world like it still remembered danger. Not training, muscle memory, he whispered to no one. "That's not how you move if you've never been shot at." Evelyn finished her second lap, then stood still, waiting, for what no one knew yet. The firing range was meant to be humbling. It exposed nerves, shaky hands, weak focus. Briggs handed Evelyn a standard-issue rifle. 10 rounds, center mass. "Let's see what Grandma's got." She didn't respond, just stepped into the lane, took a single breath, then pop, 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 pop. 10 shots, no wasted movement, no pause between reload. The paper target drifted back on its line. Calloway stepped forward to look. All 10 rounds had landed so tightly together it looked like a single jagged hole. One of the instructors stared. "No way." Another whispered, "That's not beginner level. That's Tier 1 grouping." Briggs didn't say anything. He just stared at her hands. Steady, calm, familiar, like they'd held a rifle far longer than she ever let on. That night, Calloway couldn't sleep. He replayed her movements in his mind, each shot, each step, each quiet answer. Something didn't add up. Recruits didn't move like that. They didn't breathe like that. So the next morning, while the others prepared for drills, Calloway went looking. In the admin building, the files were thin standard intake forms, medical clearance. But nothing else. Her military history, blank. No deployments, no previous units, no photo in uniform. Just a digital signature, cleared by command, Tier restricted. Tier restricted. He'd heard the term once his uncle, a retired intel officer, had called it the redacted world. People who existed on paper. Only when the government allowed them to. Calloway leaned back in the chair. His pulse quickened. "Who the hell are you, Evelyn Roe?" Close quarters combat was Sergeant Briggs's favorite module. It was loud, physical, brutal. There's no defense, he liked to say. Only dominance. The class circled around the mat. Pairs began practicing joint locks, takedowns, brute force pins. Evelyn stood quietly off to the side. Her partner, Corporal Diaz, was 30 pounds heavier, half her age. He grinned like it would be easy. But when they began, Evelyn moved like smoke. She didn't resist his force, she redirected it. A pivot here, a pressure point there. In seconds, Diaz was flat on his back, blinking up at the ceiling. Briggs frowned. "You're dancing Roe. That's not what I taught you." Evelyn looked at him calm, unreadable. "That's because you're teaching how to fight. I was taught how to finish." For the first time, the room went quiet. Even Briggs didn't have a comeback. That night, the image wouldn't leave Calloway's mind. Her wrist. That mark. It wasn't just a scar. There was a shape, faint blurred. A ghost of ink beneath weathered skin. He pulled out an old storage box from his bunk. Letters from home. A few photos. One picture stood out his father in uniform, younger, standing next to a group of unmarked operators. And on the edge of someone's wrist, barely visible, was the same mark. Not a unit number, not a division. Just a stylized emblem, a silent face in the dark. A ghost. His father once told him, There are units even the Pentagon doesn't admit exist. If they leave a mark, it means you were never supposed to see it. Calloway stared at the photo, then at the empty bunk across from his. "What are you doing here, Evelyn Rowe?" he whispered. By week 3, Briggs had stopped mocking. He started testing. Harder drills, less rest, more eyes watching. Evelyn never protested, never broke pace. But something had shifted. Her gaze, once distant, was now sharpened like she was watching the edges of every room. On Thursday, during weapons breakdown, Briggs slammed a rifle down in front of her. Field strip, blindfolded. 1 minute. Evelyn blinked once, then took off her watch. With one eye and one ear, she disassembled the weapon by touch. 39 seconds. When she finished, she slid the parts back across the table cleaner than when he gave them to her. Briggs leaned in, voice low. "You think you're better than us?" Evelyn finally spoke. "I don't think about you at all, Sergeant." Calloway held his breath. The room did too. Colonel Danvers had been watching from the glass office above the range. He rarely looked up from his clipboard. But lately... Evelyn made him look up. She moved differently. Not in ways they taught, but in ways they remembered. The instructors had started whispering. Who trained her? Why isn't there a record? Danvers reviewed her file again that night. Just a few lines. Name. Age. 1 medical note. Post-traumatic auditory loss. And, at the bottom in red Tier R, clearance override. Do not modify. That was the first time Danvers frowned. He called upstairs. Security Level 3. "Pull what's not on the file," he said. "I want to know who signed her in, because whoever Evelyn Rowe was, she hadn't walked into Fort Mason alone. Someone sent her, and now she had everyone's attention. The endurance march was meant to break them. 10 miles, full gear, desert heat pressing down like judgment. Recruits fell out one by one, some from exhaustion, some from pride. Evelyn didn't. She kept her pace. Left, right, left. The same rhythm she'd had since day one. Her boot struck the dirt like a metronome. Her pack didn't bounce. Her breathing never changed. A medic flagged her halfway through. "Ma'am, your pulse is too steady. You sure you're not hiding a stim pack?" She gave him a half glance. I've walked further, in worse boots, and kept moving. Behind her, Calloway watched not with confusion anymore, but with quiet awe. Evelyn wasn't faster. She was deeper, like a well you couldn't see the bottom of, until you fell in. It was past 2200 hours. The barracks were quiet. Calloway sat outside, boots, unlaced eyes on the stars. Evelyn passed him on her way in, same as every night, but this time, he spoke. "You don't walk like the rest of us." She paused, just enough to make him wonder if she'd heard. "You walk like the ground owes you something." Evelyn turned slowly. Her left eye, the clouded one, caught the moonlight just right. "No," she said softly. "I walk like I survived something I shouldn't have." She held his gaze for one heartbeat longer, then walked away. Calloway didn't follow. But the air around him felt heavier somehow, like her words had weight, like maybe she wasn't just surviving, she was remembering. Evelyn stood alone in the old restroom. The lights above flickered. The mirror fogged at the edges. She unfastened her watch, rolled up her sleeve. A scar. Faint, but deliberate. She touched it, gently, eyes closed. Her hand trembled just slightly. One breath. Long, not weary, not in pain, just memory. She opened her eyes, looked at herself. No smile, no fear. Then she stepped out of frame. The next exercise was hand-to-hand assessment. Volunteers would rotate through the mat 2 minutes each. Not to win, just to show grit. Lieutenant Reese, tall and brash, was first. He strutted up, gloves on, bouncing. Evelyn waited in the center, silent. She didn't raise her fists. She didn't shift her stance. Just watched him. Her right eye calm. Her left eye, clouded, unmoving, stared like it remembered things no one else could. Reese stopped bouncing, took one step forward, then paused. "What's wrong?" Briggs called. Reese glanced at Evelyn, then slowly stepped back off the mat. "Something's off," he muttered. "She's not training. She's waiting." No one laughed. For the first time, Briggs didn't push him. Evelyn said nothing. She didn't have to. Briggs had seen enough. Reese stepping down numb. That wouldn't stand. He threw down his clipboard, stepped onto the mat. "My turn." Evelyn looked at him. No change in expression, no shift in weight. Briggs squared up, his frame thick, his arms coiled in muscle. "You want to be here, you earn it." The room held its breath. He lunged fast, loud, meant to overwhelm. Evelyn didn't dodge, she turned. Just enough. His momentum carried past her and her hand brushed his shoulder, guiding, not grabbing. His heel slipped, his balance gave, and before he could react, he was on the mat. Face up, breath gone. Evelyn stood over him unbothered. "I'm not here to prove anything, Sergeant," she said softly. "I've already done that. Years ago." Colonel Danvers stood by the secure console, fingers hovering. The screen blinked once, then twice. "Access granted, Tier R, Protocol." He opened the file and stared. Evelyn Rowe. Last active, 2012. Status, MIA, presumed KIA operation, Red Ghost location. Classified unit, affiliation Spectre Group, Tier 0 asset. There was a line at the bottom, faint, almost like a warning subject embedded post-retirement. Observation only. Do not interfere. Danvers stepped back. That wasn't a file for a recruit. That was a file for a ghost. He turned to the window. Below, Evelyn was helping a younger soldier adjust his grip on a training rifle, calm, patient. She didn't look up, but Danvers felt like he'd just been seen. Something had changed. Briggs didn't yell anymore. He watched. Every time Evelyn moved, every push-up, every reload, every stance his eyes followed like he was trying to unlearn something. At mess, the tables grew quieter when she entered. No more jokes, no more stares, just glances. Short, careful, and Calloway. He followed her steps, not to expose her, but to understand. He timed her shooting drills, watched how she cleaned her rifle not like a soldier, but like a surgeon. He started mimicking her breathing during long runs. It helped. She never told him what to do, but somehow she was teaching. Without speaking, without trying, just by being there. And Calloway found himself wondering, what happens when someone that precise finally decides to act? The drill was simple reaction training with foam batons. Non-lethal, controlled. Recruits paired off, laughter, light bruises. Evelyn stood opposite Private Mason, tall. Quick, too confident. "Ready?" he asked, grinning. She nodded once. He lunged a high feint, then low swing, and in that fraction of a second, Evelyn moved. Not like a trainee, not like a fighter, like a weapon. She stepped inside, the strike twisted his arm midair and dropped him flat with a pressure pivot no one had ever seen. Mason hit the mat, windless. Silent. The baton rolled away. Evelyn froze her hand, still hovering midair, one knee lowered, posture perfect. She blinked. Once. Slowly. Then stood up. Everyone else did not. No one clapped. No one spoke. Because what they'd just seen wasn't training. The Reaper drill was never about fairness. 1 against 3 to test instinct, endurance, will. But this time, Sergeant Briggs smiled as he announced it. "We're changing it up. 5 opponents, 1 target." A murmur rippled across the floor. Evelyn said nothing, just stepped forward. No questions, no hesitation. She pulled off her training gloves, set them neatly beside her towel, and walked barefoot across the mat. Her left eye, clouded and unmoving, stared straight ahead. Her right eye watched everything. The 5 chosen were the biggest, strongest, and most aggressive soldiers in the unit. Rassin, Yates, Booker, Quan, Dillon. They circled her like wolves, joking, smirking, but no one laughed back. because deep down everyone knew this wasn't a test. This was a mistake, and it was already too late. The whistle blew. Racine moved first full charge, shoulder low, fists high. Evelyn didn't brace. She pivoted, 6 inches to the left. His momentum carried past her. Her hand extended, fingers rigid, tapped just below his ear. At the same time, her left foot nudged the back of his knee. Racine collapsed sideways, face first. He didn't get up. Booker and Dillon came next, one from the front, one from behind. Evelyn ducked low, grabbed Booker's arm, and used his momentum to spin. Dillon, still charging, crashed into his partner's knees. Before they could disentangle, her foot slammed down on Booker's shoulder, just enough pressure to end the movement, not the man. 3 down. 10 seconds. No sound, not even from the crowd. Evelyn turned to face the last 2. Calm, balanced, breathing as if nothing had happened. And in a way, nothing had. For her, this was muscle memory. For them, it was revelation. Quan and Yates circled wide. No more jokes, no more bravado, just silence. Evelyn stood still, hands low weight centered. She wasn't coiled like a snake, she was settled like stone. Yates feinted left. Quan twitched right. Evelyn didn't react, didn't flinch, just watched, and that was worse. Because they didn't see hesitation. They saw calculation, measured, predictive, inevitable. Quan's throat bobbed. He took a half-step back, then another. Yates glanced sideways, his own breath stalling in his chest. This wasn't a fight anymore. This was survival. Evelyn's feet shifted, barely audible. A storm in reverse drawing in before it strikes. They knew then. She wasn't finishing the fight. She was deciding how much of them to leave behind. Quan broke first. His fear snapped into motion, wild, reckless. He charged, arms swinging, a roar ripped from his throat. Evelyn didn't flinch. She stepped in, not back, and turned with him. Her elbow rose, controlled, and stopped just short of his jaw. One palm pressed lightly to his chest, redirecting force. And just like that, Quan dropped to one knee. Not from pain, from shock, from the realization that she could have broken him, but didn't. Evelyn stepped back. Yates froze. He looked at his partner, then at her, and saw no anger, no glee, no pride, just calm. Absolute calm. He lowered his fists. Slowly. Raised both hands. I'm done. The whistle never needed to blow. The fight had ended 5 moves ago. It just took the rest of them longer to realize it. From the observation deck, Colonel Danvers didn't speak. He didn't move. Evelyn stood at the center of the mat, surrounded by silence, bowed heads, and 5 men who would never look at her the same. The gym lights caught her left wrist, just briefly. A flicker of ink beneath pale skin. Not fresh, faded, worn by time. But the shape was unmistakable. A curved line, a hollow eye, a mark not used in over a decade. Danvers staggered back from the glass. The words escaped his lips like a name long buried. Spectre 1. It wasn't a code. It was a ghost. A myth spoken in classified corners, a woman who walked into black ops missions and never left a body behind. And now, she was standing in his gym. Danvers sat alone in his office, the lights-off file still glowing on the screen. The name burned into him. Spectre 1. He'd heard it once, 10 years ago, in a windowless room. A CIA man, grizzled, drunk, too tired to lie, whispered about a unit that didn't officially exist. No flag, no insignia, just missions so dark even their failures were classified. You ever hear the name Spectre 1? The man said, you shut the hell up and walk away. She doesn't need orders. She needs room. Danvers had laughed back then, thought it was folklore, until today, until he saw that mark, that stance, that calm, until 5 of his best soldiers folded like paper under a woman who never raised her voice. And now he understood too late. You don't train someone like Evelyn Rowe. You survive her. Evelyn walked off the mat like nothing had happened. No glance back, no celebration. Just her towel, her water bottle, the quiet rhythm of someone who's done this before. Danvers took the stairs, fast boots echoing against steel. He caught her at the doors. Row. She stopped. Didn't turn. That tattoo. The file. The name. His voice cracked, and that embarrassed him more than the silence. She looked at him over her shoulder. Calm. Tired. Not angry. It's just ink. "Colonel," she said. He swallowed. "Why come back?" "After everything." She paused. "Not long, just enough." "Ghosts don't come back," she said quietly. "They just check the locks." Then she pushed open the doors and stepped into the sun. The door shut behind her with a quiet final thud. No salute, no command. Just stillness. Sergeant Briggs stood at the edge of the mat, hands on his hips, eyes unfocused. He had trained men for 20 years, broken them, built them, but he had never seen that, never felt it. Calloway rose slowly from the bench's rifle still across his lap. He didn't say a word. No one did. One by one, the recruits stood, not as soldiers, as witnesses. They weren't clapping, they weren't cheering, but something had changed. Their posture, their breath, like they had been visited by something ancient. Not a warrior, a reminder that strength isn't loud, and legends never ask for permission to exist. That night, Calloway didn't sleep. He opened the small lockbox beneath his bunk, same one he'd carried through 2 bases and 1 flood. Inside, a photo. His father, 20 years younger, standing with 4 others. No names, no insignia. But now he looked again. The 5th figure half-shadowed face turned slightly. Short-cropped hair, calm eyes, and, on her left wrist, a faded mark. A ghost. "Spectre 1, he whispered. His father had mentioned her once, over a quiet beer. There was a woman, he'd said, who didn't follow orders. She made them unnecessary. Calloway leaned back on his bunk. Evelyn wasn't a mystery anymore. She was memory returning just long enough to prove some things never vanish. They just watch and wait. By morning, her bunk was empty. Neatly folded sheets. Dog tags gone. No note. Just a single line scratched into the wood frame. Stand quiet. Breathe steady. Finish clean. Calloway read it twice. Then, once more, not with his eyes, but with memory. Around the base, stories began to spread, about the woman with the broken ear, the clouded eye, the hands that moved like memory. Some called her a ghost. Others called her a myth. But those who had stood near her knew better. She wasn't there to be remembered. She came to remind. That strength doesn't shout, that silence can be sharp, and that some warriors don't wear medals, they wear scars, not to prove where they've been, but to show what they refuse to leave behind.